Joringel and Jorinda. Manseng's Timis Urpampada and Rodwin for asking for today's article. A crumbling stone castle stood in the middle of a vast and ancient forest that was thicker than any living memory and older than the earliest towns. Half eaten by shadow and moss, it emerged from the tangle of forest like a black tooth. It was seldom visited by tourists since, even during the day, it seemed to be shrouded in secrets. Animals avoided its limits with wide, terrified eyes, and the birds fell silent in its presence. Music, an elderly woman who lived alone in this castle, could only be referred to as a woman in the broadest sense. She was a witch, one whom the countryside spoke about and feared. Her name was unknown. Nobody was brave enough to inquire. She was a recluse, yet her abilities extended much beyond the broken stones. She did not stay in human shape during the day. Rather, she transformed into a screech owl, soaring through the dimly lit corridors on silent wings, or she slipped into the skin of a cat, prowling among the castle halls with narrow, alert eyes. However, she reverted to her original form when night fell and the darkness brought its shadows but together. She resumed her appearance as a crooked, hunched woman with ember-like eyes and a hooked nose. She posed a threat to the woodland creatures. She could entice birds and the wild animals from their nests and the caves with a gesture or a whisper. Mika's lambs, wolves slithered toward her. Willingly, sparrows fell into her hands, and their fate was set once they came into her possession. She roasted or boiled them for dinner after killing them mercilessly. Music, however, the naive maidens who ventured too near the castle walls were the target of her worst brutality. A person's body would instantly stiffen as if roots had grown around their feet if they were within 100 paces of the castle, whether they were a man, woman, beast, or bird. Until the witch herself decided to let them go, they were made to stand still. However, the invader risked a considerably harsher fate if she was a young lady who was pure-hearted and innocent. The girl would be quickly changed into a bird, usually a nightingale, and imprisoned in a wicker case for eternity with a spell whispered under the witch's breath. The witch kept row upon row of these cages, each containing a rare and delicate bird that had once been a girl, in a secret chamber inside the castle walls. Nobody had ever escaped that fate. There was a peaceful village with meadows and the soft streams not far from the edge of the forest. Every cottage and the road in this area talked about the beauty of a woman named Jorinda. Joringel was the young guy to whom Jorinda had promised her heart. He had a robust physique, a considerate demeanor, and he was totally committed to her. Since they had grown up together, their love had developed organically and they remained consistent with the changing of the seasons. They were engaged, and even though their wedding day had not yet come, everyone in the hamlet could feel the warmth and the gentleness of their delight. Spending time by themselves talking in private about the future they wanted to create, the cottage they desired, the kids they wanted to raise, and the life they thought was ahead of them, was their greatest pleasure. However, Joringel was aware of the witch's tales, much like everyone who lived close to the woodland. Like any child, he was aware of the cautions. The historic castle should never be approached. Never venture too far under the old canopy. When the light fades, never become lost. He therefore frequently warned Jorinda, particularly while they were out for walks. The threat seemed far away, like a story told by scared parents, because they were still young and trusting. Jorinda and Joringel went for a stroll along the edge of the woodland one sunny and lovely evening. The scent of new leaves and the pine filled the air. The couple didn't say anything as they strode hand in hand. Neither of them could define what was pressing on them, but it was both heavy and gentle. A sudden melancholy stirred Jorinda's feelings, and she took a seat in a patch of waning sunlight for a while. Silently, tears trickled down her cheeks. "We are sorrowful today, as if some shadow is upon you." As the air itself seemed to be getting thicker. The jungle was filled with an odd silence. They were confused when they got up to go home. The path was gone. The shadows appeared to be longer than previously. The woods were bathed in an unsettling half-light as the sun lingered half above and half below the far-off hill. Joringel froze as he peered through a clump of shrubs. The collapsing walls of the witch's castle loomed closer than he could have ever dreamed. A shiver ran down his spine. All of the stories he had ever heard came flooding back. He lost his breath. His arms and legs were like water. He turned to caution Jorinda. However, she started singing as soon as he opened his mouth, as if she were driven by something other than herself. The dove must be dying soon. My tiny bird with a crimson neck sings. Sing sorrow juk juk. Her voice wavered and then changed before Joringel could reach her. The call of a nightingale flowed from her throat in place of words. He was horrified to see Jorinda shrink into a small, quivering bird with beautiful red markings around her neck and the silky feathers. The air was pierced by a jagged flutter of wings. With eyes as bright as twin fires, a scream owl raced out of the shadows. It made 3 passes around Joringel, its awful howl accompanying each one. Joringel felt his whole body lock in place as soon as the owl finished circling. He was stuck, immobile in the middle of a step. The owl went into a nearby thicket as the sun completely disappeared behind the hill. The witch appeared in its stead. Muttering to herself, she extended her hand, took the nightingale Jorinda in her palm, and turned to leave. Even though Joringel's heart was screaming, he remained silent. The witch's voice echoed hollowly as she gazed at him after returning from the castle. Salutations, Zagiel. Zagiel, release him immediately if the moon shines on the cage. Joringel felt the unseen links dissolve at those words. His lungs filled with air. His knees buckled and he fell in front of her, appealing, pleading, reaching out to her with a desperate lack of dignity. Return her to me. Give her back, please. She is my life, my heart, and my Jorinda. She will never, ever be yours again. Joringel was left shattered and alone in the silent clearing as she turned and disappeared into the darkness of her castle without saying anything else. Joringel roamed aimlessly for a long time, sadness ripping at his heart. Days went by without purpose or quantification. He slept little, ate little, and he took no more solace in anything. All that lingered in his thoughts was the sound of Jorinda's voice and the image of her fragile bird form. He eventually arrived to a village distant from his own, fatigued and hollow. He found employment chatting for sheep, sir, passing through the days like a ghost. Music but a silent resolve burned within him. He refused to leave Jorinda to her destiny. He frequently went back to the woodland and circled its perimeter while gazing at the castle's far-off silhouette. He prayed for direction, for a sign, for anything that could show him how to set her free. Finally, a response was received. Joringel had his most vivid dream in months one night. In a clearing, he noticed a flower in bloom, its petals bright and silky, with a rich blood-red hue. A pearl of breathtaking beauty that shone like a drop of moonlight lay at its heart. He grabbed for the flower in his dream, and when he did, he experienced a power surge he had never experienced before. A stone shone when he touched it with it. The bars of a birdcage melted apart when he touched it. The bird changed into a girl as he touched the shape of a nighttime gale. He awoke with a start, his heart pounding with fresh hope and his breath harsh in his throat. The dream had seemed too genuine to deny. He started his hunt at dawn with nothing but resolve. He traveled over hills, through meadows, across brooks, and under tangled trees. He looked on hierarchy slopes, valleys, and ravines. He dug through dense foliage and overturned stones, constantly searching for the pearl-shining, blood-red flyer. Days went by, followed by a week, but he persisted. He noticed a gleam next to a mosirat on the 9th morning, just as the first light appeared on the landscape. The flower from his dream was her. A drop of dew as big and pure as a pearl shimmered in its center, and its petals shone lavishly. Joringel journeyed day and night till he returned to the jungle, taking care to protect the enchanted flower. Even though he was afraid, his gore overshadowed it. He proceeded confidently, knowing that the flower would lead and shield him. He used the red flower to touch the door. It exploded. The only sound in the castle's interior was the soft fluttering of wings that reverberated down the stone corridors. He followed the sound down winding hallways until he came to a spacious room with weak light coming in via small windows. Standing among them, the witch fed her captives handfuls of seed. Anger shot across her face as soon as she noticed Joringel. She screamed, spit poisonous insults, and charged at him, but she was stopped 2 paces away by an unseen force. She tried to break through the barrier by clawing at the air. She was repulsed by the flower's power just as firmly as if there were a glass wall between them. Joringel moved away from her cries and started frantically looking through the cages. But how was he going to locate Jorinda? Thousands of nightingales were there, their sounds mingling into a melancholy chorus, and they were all identical at first glance. Then he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. The witch was stealthily removing a cage from its hook and making her way toward the exit while holding it closely, as if she hoped to disappear unobserved. Jorinda felt a thrill of recognition. He jumped in her direction. Joringel reached the witch and detached the case with a red flower before she could flee. With a sigh, the magic holding the bird inside vanished as a gentle glow permeated the wicker. Jorinda was standing in front of him. She threw her arms around his neck and he embraced her as if they were worried she would disappear again. The witch let out a cry, but Joringel also touched her with the flower. Her strength vanished in an instant. Her eyes lost their sparkle. Weakened, her body sagged. She was no more longer able to change, ensnare, or enchant another living being. The room was filled with rattling cages. Their doors creaked open one by one. Birds took off in enormous whirling clouds. Some became maidens in midair, falling on their knees with tears flowing down their cheeks. Even though the human bodies had long since been lost to time, others managed to flee through the windows and regain their freedom. Joringel brought Jorinda out into the sun, holding her close. The witch's presence no more longer silenced the forest birds as they sang overhead. Finally helpless, the old fortress towered over them. Walking side by side, the lovers made their way back to the town that had long lamented Jorinda's disappearance in search of a future rebuilt by bravery, dedication, and the unwavering optimism. When the wedding day finally arrived, the bells sang with a tenderness that no more forest bird could rival.